Context of the organization is the very first clause we have to deal with when it comes to ISO 27001. So what I would like to do is take a look at what it says within the document itself, within the standard, and then we'll take a look at one way that you can actually display it, and it's the way that we like to operate. So let's take a look at what it says in the standard first. So here we are within ISO 27001, and we're at the section context of the organization. Now, as you can see here, there is actually only 4 sections within this clause. You have understanding the organization and its context, understanding the needs and expectation of interested parties, determining the scope of the security management system, that's this, and then it has a requirement here which is fairly simple because it's more of a statement. Information security management system, the organization, that's you, shall establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve an information security management system, including the processes needed and their interactions in accordance with the requirements of this document. So although it's stated in there, there's not a lot there you would need to do to demonstrate compliance with that, other than to be able to show that you have established it, implemented it, you are maintaining it, and that you are, of course, continually improving it. So that's in the very nature of the whole management system that you're putting together. So there you are. In terms of the requirements of the standard, understanding the organization in its context. So the first thing you need to do is understand or explain who you are. What do you do? What are your products? What are your services? Are you a completely remote organization, as in you don't have any offices? Or do you have offices up and down the country and internationally? Do you have different functions that operate out of those different sites, for instance? And of course, who are your customers? And that takes us on to the interested parties. So here's a task. Here's an action for you. Action. The first thing you need to do is go out and speak to various people in your organization to gather some of this information in. So do you have an org chart, an organizational structure? So that will tell you which functions are in your business and who heads them up. Do you have a site structure? So that will tell you what sites you have and what operations are in each of those locations. Do you have an understanding of your missions and your goals, your objectives for your business? Do you understand what products and services you actually have? So this is the action. You need to answer these questions. Now, some of this information is actually quite easy to obtain. Some of it will be on your website. So go and take a look at your organization's website. Under the About Us page, typically it says when the organization was founded, etc. So go and gather that information, and that's the start of this process. From there, you can then start to identify what potentially, and this is the risk aspects, what are your internal and external issues. This can be done through a number of different mechanisms. Perhaps you want to complete a SWOT analysis. That's a strengths, weakness, and opportunities and threats analysis. Or PESTLE, which is, again, a tool which is quite often used, which goes into a little bit more detail around political, environmental, social, technical, economic, and legislative. I probably got those two wrong, but in the wrong way around. But you know what I mean, PESTLE. So there you are. So you might want to do those, go down that particular route, and that will help you identify those external issues and also those internal issues that are relevant. That also then takes you on to this next requirement about understanding the needs and expectation of your interested parties. So who are your interested parties? That's a question for you. Who are your interested parties? Your interested parties, are they your employees? Yes, clearly. But your landlord is also potentially an interested party. It might also be people that your shareholders, the people who have invested in your organization. Clearly, your clients and your customers are interested parties. So you need to identify what those interested parties are and identify what their requirements are. Now, for instance, if it's customers and clients that you're going to state are interested parties, which it clearly is, or they clearly are, you may have different requirements. So client X might require that your data is stored within the EU, and categorically data cannot leave the EU. Another client may not be interested where the data is stored, but they may simply say to you that data shall be encrypted at rest, or they may say that your service level agreement is 99.99999% uptime. What does it say within your contracts with your clients, with your interested parties? So that's how you what you need to identify and record, and then state very clearly what you will do to meet those requirements. So the way that we like to do this is through spreadsheets, and we will list all the interested parties. We will list what the requirements are, and then we will list how we've actually addressed and met those particular requirements, because those are the requirements we're going to be audited against. This takes us on to the next section, which is determining the scope of your management system. And again, a very important point here. Your scope is essentially the thing that will sit on your certificate. So you need to get your scope right. Now, your scope will be determined by what you're trying to achieve from your 27001. The scope may be, for instance, just on one particular product or service. It might be on one location, and then you'll broaden that scope as time progresses. You may decide, if you've got 10 offices, you may say, well, the main body of our operations are in this office and this office and this office. So for now, the scope is London, Manchester, and Edinburgh, for instance, if that's where you're located. And all the other locations, will kind of put those out of scope for now. But it's important, because your scope, as I've said, will sit on your certificate. And certainly when clients and customers and auditors like myself and consultants like myself come along and ask you as a supplier of services, A, are you ISO 27001 certified? And if you say yes, the next question will be, show me a copy of your certificate. And specifically, I'm looking at what the scope is. So the scope has to be meaningful, and it needs to consider and take into account the external and internal issues that have been identified before. And it needs to make sure that it does interface between activities performed by you as an organization and the other organizations that you might interact with as well. And very importantly here, as you can see, it states that the scope shall be available as documented information. So again, important to identify where you're going to put this information. And I would argue that, again, how you're going to have to document this, because how else are you going to be able to demonstrate that you've identified the relevant requirements and how you are addressing those particular requirements through your management system? As I said, for us, for consultants like us, we use a spreadsheet. It doesn't need to be anything more complex than that. And whilst we talk about that, how do you demonstrate this? How do you demonstrate the context of organization? Well, it's a story. It's a story about you. And this is a great place to start. So let me show you an example of the way that we do this. And it's a very quick example. And it's only one way you can do this. You can do it in multiple different ways. Here you are. This is one way that we do it. We do it using a PowerPoint slide presentation. It's nice and simple. It's graphical. And again, you can use Word and PowerPoint or whatever you want to use. The context of the organization, this is just a template that I've created here just to demonstrate for today's purposes. And you can see that we have a nice little graphic that shows the information that we're going to capture. So the mission, the background of the organization, when were you formed, how was it formed perhaps, what the products and services are that you offer, what technical infrastructure do you rely upon, what's your tech stack, and the locations that you serve, that you operate from. And also on the opposite side of that, sort of the hard and fast information, we like to capture also what your goals are and your values, and maybe even if you've got them, your objectives on this particular slide. An example here that we've just provided, again, just for your for your use here. Example, to provide affordable cybersecurity services to the SME market without compromising on quality and excellence. That's our mission. Now, don't have 140 employees, but it's here for examples. And what the services that we offer, of course, those are definitely our services. Those tech stack, that's just there for, again, examples, what our values are, what our goals are. This is what you need to provide. And one of the other subtle reasons why context of the organization is important and really useful is you've got to remember that the auditor, when they come along to audit you, the external body, they don't know who you are. And the likelihood is, until they turn their cameras on that morning and they introduce themselves, they probably haven't had time to do any digging about you. They may know you superficially, they may know you if you're a household name, but let's be honest, even then, will they really know and understand who you are? Certainly, large organizations, the BBC, for instance, or Amazon or Microsoft, to name three large organizations. Does anyone really know what the shape and structure of those organizations are? The whole point of context is it tells a story. And that's what this does about you. So, give your backstory. What do you do? Who do you do it for? Why do you do it? Interested third parties. I've already mentioned that we have a separate register for all of that information. So again, we point people or the auditor to those separate documents in here. We like to keep the company objectives within this document as well, again, because security objectives should be tied to it. We like to have information security objectives listed in here. And also we make reference to the legal register. Again, back to interested parties, Financial Conduct Authority, if you are regulated by the FCA, for instance, would be an interested party. Who your regulators are, only you will know. And that's the way that this document continues. And we talk about internal issues, whether they're on the register or not, external issues, and again, whether we've decided to put those on the register or not. And as you can see, we've used Pestle here to identify some of those political and social aspects that we might want to include. And very importantly, we identify what the scope is and we document the scope. And this is a typical example of what we might cover. Obviously, it's particular and crafted to each and every single client, and you need to craft this to be specific to you. And that's it. That's our approach to developing the context of organization. It should be really simple. You don't want to overcomplicate this. I mean, it's not a huge section, clause 4. As I've said, there's only 4 key requirements. And in truth, the 4th requirement is just to be able to evidence and demonstrate that. You just need to be able to show someone a well-established, well-maintained, continually improving management system. So your context of organization, as I've said repeatedly, can be in any format that you decide it to be. Keep it simple. It should tell a story. It should offer context of who you are, what you do, why you do it, and who you do it for. It really shouldn't be more complex than that. So there you are. Until the next time, thank you for watching again, and please do like, comment, and subscribe, and share it amongst your friends as well. And we look forward to seeing you on the next video.